This video is based on the unit review on equations from the Math Prep and Learning Lab, and it will be covering problems 19 through 23, which is solving multi-step equations. So the first thing when we're solving an equation to remember is my goal here is I want 1x plus nothing to equal something, because 1x plus nothing is just x equals. Because 1x is just x, plus nothing means there's nothing to add to it. So that's what I want to find, is what is x. So I have two things I can do here. I can either deal with the 75 or the -5. When there's two options, what we want to do is always deal with the simpler one to deal with. First, address the thing that's going to be added or subtracted. Then move to what's closer to the variable. In this case, it's a multiplication, which you will deal with by the inverse operation, by doing the opposite, which would be to divide. So first I'm going to deal with the 75. I want that to be a 0 because I want it gone. So I'm going to subtract 75 from both sides. And then what I get for my answer is 75 minus 75 is 0, minus, and I still have 5x. 145 minus 75 is 70. So now I have -5x equals 70. My next step is I want just x. So because this is multiplied, if I divide, -5 divided by -5 is 1, so I have 1x. And over here, if I divided here by -5, I have to divide here by -5. So I get 70 divided by -5. Sorry, I was trying to make the things that I changed, I was trying to make in purple and the other in green. So 70 divided by 5 is 14. Positive divided by negative leaves me one negative sign, that's odd, so I have a -14. So x equals -14. To check my answer, I write out the equation, and instead of x, I put in the value that we decided x equals. And then I do the math. Order of operations means I would do this first. A negative times a negative is 2 negatives, so it ends up being positive. 5 times 14 is 70. So 75 and 70 is 145, which equals 145. So my answer checks. I know it's correct. On the test with equations, you should get a lot of them right because you can check, and then if it doesn't work, you go back and fix it. And to be very honest, this is the third time I went through doing this video because twice now I have moved too quickly, and when I went to check this answer, it was wrong. So I'm starting fresh, and hopefully I'll get it right this time. So this problem, if you notice, there is a q on this side, so a variable on this side and on this side. So there's different order you can do things in, but I like to get the variables on the same side to begin with. At some point you need to do that, so I like to do that right up front. So I sort of plan ahead. I think, okay, if I wanted this to turn into 0, I wanted this gone, I would add 3q, because -3q plus 3q would give me a 0. If I add 3q over here, I'm going to have more positives than negatives, so I'll end up having a positive. So I like switching it that way because I like a positive variable. If I did it the other way, if I added 2q here, it would make it no q's left here. If I added 2q here, I'd have a -q. I don't like negative variables, so I choose to do it the other way. I'm going to add 3q to both sides. When I do that, I get 7 minus 3q, -3q, positive 3q turns into a 0. Over here, I have -14 and a negative q and a -2q, positive 3q. If I were to do the boxes, a positive and a negative box, I have a positive 3q's and I have a -2q's. Which box has more? The positive. How much more? There's one more. So 1q. So really, I wouldn't even put the 1 or the 0. I'd just say 7 equals -14 plus q. So now I want q by itself. So I'm going to get rid of that 14. I want a 0 there instead. So I'm going to add 14. If I do it to this side, I do it to this side also, which leaves me with 0 plus q on this side. 7 plus 14 is 21. So I have 21 equals 0 plus q is just q. And that's my answer. If I go to check it, 7 minus 3, and I equals negative 14. Make sure I copy it correctly. Plug in 21 for, whoops, the variable in both places. So I have 7 minus 3 times 21 is 63. I have negative 14, and negative 2 times 21 is negative 42. 63 minus 7 is 56. And 63 was negative, 7 was positive, so it's negative 56. Negative 14 and negative 42 is negative 56, so it checks. I know that's the correct answer. Let's do another one of these two-steppers where we've got, it's actually more than 2 steps, it's multi-step. I've got a variable on this side and a variable on this side. If I remove it from this side, I would be taking away 2m to make that go away, make it a 0. If I do a negative 2m here, I'm going to have a negative variable. I like positive variables, so I'm going to do it the other way. I'm going to add 5m so that this side gets a 0 variable, 0 m's, which is 0. And I still have 20 there. If I add 5m there, I add 5m here. So then I have negative 15, and 2m plus 5m is 7m. So now I'm going to, I want m by itself, but first I'm going to get rid of the 15, so I want it as 0. So if I add 15 there, I add 15 here. 20 and 15 is 30, equals, that turns into a 0 plus 7m. So really it's 30, oops, that's 35. 20 and 15 is 35. 35 equals 7m, divide by 7, so I have 5 equals m. So negative 5 to check, negative 5 times m plus 20 equals negative 15 plus 2 times m. And if m is 5, I have negative 5 times 5 is negative 25 plus 20. Negative 15 plus 10. Negative 25 plus 20, if I have a positive and a negative, there's 25 in the negative box, there's 20 in the positive box. Which box has more? The negative. How many more? 5 more, because 25 is 5 bigger than 20. Over here, if I have a positive box and a negative box, 15 goes in the negative box, 10 goes in the positive box. Which box has more? The negative box. How many? 5 more. So it checks. So now it gets a little more complicated because first we have to clear the parentheses, and then we have to deal with balancing the equation or solving the equation. So if you remember from simplifying expressions, to clear the parentheses, I multiply the 5 times the r and the 5 times the negative 12, and this just stays the same over on this side. So I have 5r plus 5 times negative 12 is negative 60 equals 13r minus 4. So this is where I'm going to deal with the r terms, the variable terms. I want it to end up positive, so I can see that if I were to take this one away, it's going to end up being negative because I'll be taking 13 away, and 13 is bigger than 5, so this would be a negative variable. So I want to do the opposite. I want to take away the 5r from both sides. So then I have 5r minus 5r, so there are no r's left, so it's 0. Over here, I have 13 and negative 5, so if I have a positive box and a negative box, I have 13 in the positive box, 5 in the negative box. The positive box is bigger, so it's going to be a positive. How many more are in this box? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's 8 more. So 8r minus 4 equals negative 60. So now I'm going to, I want the r by itself. So I want this gone, so I'm going to add 4. If I add 4 there, I add 4 here. Negative 4 and positive 4 is 0. So I'm left with 8r on this side. If I have a positive box and a negative box and 60 is in the negative, 4 is in the positive, 60 is bigger, so the answer is going to be negative. There's more in this box than this box. How many more? Well, 60 minus 4, you're going to have to borrow. You can use a calculator. It's going to end up being 56. Let me recopy this. Negative 56 equals 8r. So now I want just r, so I'm going to divide by 8 because that becomes a 1. Negative 56 divided by 8, negative divided by positive is just one negative sign. That's odd, so it's going to be a negative answer. 56 divided by 8 is 7. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so it's 1r, so we just say r. So r equals negative 7. If I check it, I'm going to put a parentheses where the r was. Minus 12 equals 13 times r minus 4. And negative 7 is my r. So negative 7 minus 12, positive box, negative box. They both go in the negative box. So the sign is going to be negative because there's more in this box. How many more? Well, there's none here, and there's 12 plus 7 is 19 here. So 5 times negative 19 equals 13 times 7 is 91. A positive times a negative, that's just one negative sign, so that's odd, so it's negative. So negative 91 minus 4. One more step, I have to do 5 times negative 19 is negative 95. Negative 91 minus 4 is negative 95. So it checks. Okay, one last example. Here it's very complicated because there's distribution on both sides. There's two variables over here, so there's going to be a lot of simplifying. So the first thing you always want to do when it's this complicated is simplify each side. So here I'm not going to do any balancing of the equation. I'm just going to simplify this side. So I have 1 plus, I have 4 times w and 4 times negative 2. 4 times w is 4w. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. There's one more step I can do here. I can still simplify because I have like terms. I can have 1 minus 8. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to slide down. I'm combining these two. So I have a positive box and a negative box. 1's in the positive box, 8's in the negative box. Which box has more? The negative box. So the answer is negative. How many more? How many more is 8 than 1? It's 7. So that's as simple as that side can get. Let's simplify this side. I have 7w. Then I have a negative or a negative 1 times 8 and times 2w. So I can either think of this as the opposite of 8, so negative 8, and the opposite of 2w, so negative 2w, or negative 1 times 8 is negative 8. Negative 1 times 2w, I'm doing it times each of those. Negative 1 times 2w is negative 2w. Now here I have these two like terms I can combine. So I have positive w's and I have negative w's. I have 2 negative w's and 7 positive w's. So which box has more? This one. So it's going to be positive. How many more? Well, 7 take away 2 is 5. 5 more. So I have 5 w's. I still have the minus 8. Now I'm going to do where I balance it by doing the same thing to both sides. I look at the variables first. If I subtract 5w from both sides, I'll end up with a negative. So I don't want to do that. I want to take away the smaller one. So 5 minus 4 is 1w. 4 minus 4 is 0. I still have negative 7 and I still have negative 8. That was, sorry, not 70 plus 0. So if I add 8 to both sides, I end up over here with bigger box is positive. And how many more are in this box than that box? 1 more. I'm not going to add the 0 because 1 plus 0 is just going to be 1. And here, 8 take away. Negative 8 and positive 8 cancel each other out. So I have W equals 1. If I go over here and check it, I'm going to do 1 plus 4 times the variable minus 2 equals 7 times the variable. I need more space. 1 plus 4 times the variable minus 2 equals 7 times the variable minus 8 plus 2 times the variable. And the variable is 1. So I have to put it all 3 places because it was 3 places there. So now order of operations, first I'm going to do this. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. 1 minus negative 4 is negative 3. And I'm not talking through all of those steps just for the sake of time. Oops, 7 minus, that's not 16. 8 plus 2 is 10. 7 minus 10 is negative 3. So it checked. It's correct.